The night before our wedding, my husband-to-be looked me in the eyes and said it was duty, not love, that bound us. The next morning, he woke in a panic, realizing I was gone. For years, I had been blind, believing in a love that never truly existed. When my husband walked through our front door with another woman on his arm, he expected me to cry, to beg. Instead, I smiled. I had seen this play out before. In another life, I never imagined that life would end in his study. But there I was, gasping for breath as the poison took hold. James stood over me, his once handsome face contorted into a cold, satisfied smile. The pain in my chest was unbearable, my vision blurred. But the worst part wasn't the agony, it was knowing I had spent 15 years loving a man who had plotted my murder. "You really should have signed those divorce papers, Sarah," he mused, glancing at his gold watch. "This could have been much easier." I wanted to laugh at the irony. Just 2 hours ago, I had uncovered the truth about my so-called perfect husband. Hidden in his study safe were documents proving he had stolen my inheritance. Millions that my grandmother had left solely to me. The old security footage I unearthed showed James and his mistress, Victoria, meticulously planning my upcoming accident. They never expected me to find it all today. I had been so foolish. Just hours earlier, I had been preparing his favorite dinner, wanting to surprise him for our anniversary. Instead, I had surprised him in his study, clutching the evidence of his betrayal. The moment his expression shifted from shock to something much darker, I knew I was doomed. "It's almost poetic," James continued, settling into his leather chair. "Your grandmother's heart condition runs in the family. Everyone will assume natural causes." He smiled, the same charming smile that once made me fall for him. "Victoria already has the grieving friend act perfected. She'll comfort me through this loss. A year from now, we'll marry, and no one will ever know." Memories flooded back, the late nights at the office, the countless business trips with Victoria, the way my family slowly distanced themselves, convinced by James that I was becoming unstable. I had defended him every time, believing his lies, trusting him with everything. My vision darkened as my thoughts drifted to our son, Tommy, away at boarding school. James had insisted on sending him there 3 years ago. Now I understood. He had been methodically cutting me off from everyone I loved. The best part, James leaned forward, his voice eager, like when he closed a big business deal. "Tommy's trust fund will be under my control until he turns 25. Your grandmother's lawyers never saw that clause coming." I tried to speak, to curse him, but my tongue was heavy. My last conscious moment was marked by the sound of his phone ringing, Victoria's special ringtone, as my world faded to black. I heard his voice, cheerful and unbothered. "Darling, it's done. Start planning that vacation." But death did not come. Instead, my life rewound, 15 years of memories unraveled in reverse. Tommy's birth, our wedding, the day I met James at my grandmother's charity gala. I saw every red flag I had ignored, every deception I had swallowed whole. Then, everything stopped at a single moment. 5 years before my death, I stood in my grandmother's garden, sunlight warm on my skin, the scent of roses in the air. My grandmother, alive and well, held my hands, her eyes filled with concern. "Sarah, dear," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "I don't trust that young man you're dating. James reminds me of your grandfather's business partner, the one who tried to steal our company." Tears filled my eyes. In my past life, I had dismissed her warning, argued with her, defended him. A week later, she changed her will to protect my inheritance, though I hadn't known it at the time. This time, I would listen. I hugged her tightly, my voice trembling. "You're right, Gran. I'm sorry I didn't listen before." She pulled back, surprised but pleased. "Well, that's a change of heart. What brought this on?" I wiped my eyes and smiled. "Let's just say I had a wake-up call, and I need your advice about something else. Remember that investment opportunity you mentioned last week? I think I'm ready to learn more about running the family business." Her face lit up with pride. She had no idea that, in my past life, she had died before she could teach me everything I needed to know. But this time would be different. I had 5 years until James would try to kill me, 5 years to prepare. As I followed my grandmother inside for tea, my mind was already calculating. James thought he was the mastermind, the player pulling the strings. He had no idea the game had changed. The next morning, I woke up in my old bedroom, surrounded by the life I had lost. My hands looked younger, my wedding ring still sparkled, and outside my window, the city skyline was unchanged from 5 years before. I got dressed for work at James's company, where I had once been just another finance employee. This time, I held the advantage. Over the past 5 years, I had uncovered every sordid detail, each shady deal and impending betrayal. My phone lit up this morning with a message from James, sweetly wishing his beautiful wife a pleasant day and suggesting dinner at Lorenzo's. Once, such gestures would have melted my heart. Now, they only reminded me of his duplicity, his routine lunches at Lorenzo's with Victoria, his latest affair cloaked as a casual meal. "I can't tonight, love," I texted back. Gran asked me to join her at the hospital board meeting to learn more about the family business. I added a few extra exclamation points for good measure, playing up my role as the eager, oblivious wife. His reply was swift and patronizing. "You don't need to waste time with that. I'll take care of our future." Classic James, always quashing my independence. Passing Victoria's desk, James's new executive assistant, warmly welcomed by me just 2 months prior. I couldn't help but smirk as she pretended to work, her screen filled with luxury shopping tabs. Her saccharine voice interrupted my thoughts. "James mentioned you're not joining us, I mean, him, for dinner. Such a shame. I've booked Lorenzo's for a client meeting at the same time. We could have doubled up." I turned to her, offering a disarmingly naive smile. "Oh, how funny. You know what? I just recalled Gran mentioning something about your father. Didn't his investment firm go under last year? Something about client funds going missing." Victoria's face drained of color. In another life, I wouldn't have known about her father's scandal until much later, but now, watching her squirm, I mentally noted to delve deeper into those missing funds. The day raced by as I set my plans in motion. First, I met with Richard CH, the head of IT, dismissed for incompetence by James in another timeline, though now I knew he was fired for uncovering financial discrepancies. "Mr. Chin," I greeted him warmly. "My grandmother mentioned you set up the original security systems here. Could you show me how they operate? I'm particularly interested in the backup servers." Richard's eyes brightened, clearly grateful for the recognition of his expertise. Hours later, I had access to every security feed and email backup in the building. James's technological ignorance was legendary. He still used the same old passwords for everything. Over lunch, I rekindled my friendship with Megan from the district attorney's office. In another life, our paths had diverged post-marriage. This time, I intended things to be different. "Meg, I've missed you. Remember that corporate fraud case you mentioned? I think I have some relevant information." By lunch's end, I had laid the groundwork for an invaluable alliance. That evening at the hospital board meeting, I stood in for James, traditionally the family representative. Gran's pride was evident as I inquired about the hospital's finances with newfound sharpness. "You seem different lately, more focused," Gran noted as we departed. I squeezed her hand. "I just realized it's time I took responsibility for our family's legacy, especially from those who'd steal it." At home, I found James fuming, his irritation barely contained. The board meeting went late. I started before he could protest, simultaneously revealing some innocuous-looking company documents that subtly evidenced his early fraudulent activities. "You shouldn't meddle in business matters," he snapped, eyeing the documents warily. "Don't be silly. I'm just trying to make you proud," I replied, kissing his cheek to momentarily ease his suspicions. Men like James never expect their unassuming wives to pose a threat. That night, as he slept, I slipped into his office. His safe's combination was predictably our wedding date. Inside, I found documents laying the groundwork for his plans to usurp my inheritance. I photographed everything, then meticulously replaced the documents. He would never suspect his own arrogance. The obvious combination giving me the leverage I needed. Before returning to bed, I sent a coded email to a private investigator I had vetted extensively in this timeline. The subject line read, "Regarding Project Phoenix." Everything was falling into place. Lying next to James, listening to his steady breaths, I felt no regret. In my previous life, I had died full of questions. In this one, I was determined to ensure that James and Victoria spent their lives regretting every conspiracy they had ever concocted. 3 months of meticulous planning culminated in this moment, As I watched the security feeds showing James entering the building with Victoria, everything was right on schedule, unlike before. When he introduced her as his special project consultant, I had a different revelation planned for the upcoming company gala. Sarah James's voice resonated powerfully across the office. "Come meet our new consultant," he announced, standing there in a flawless suit, his practiced smile perfect. Victoria beamed beside him. The entire office watched, anticipating the awkward confrontation they had been whispering about all week. I rose gracefully, smoothing my designer dress. Not the cheap imitation I once wore, but an authentic piece identical to Victoria's. Her smile faltered as she noticed. "Victoria, lovely to finally meet you officially," I said warmly, extending my hand. "Though, I suppose we already met last Tuesday at the Grand Hotel. You were having lunch with James in his usual private room, weren't you?" The color drained from their faces. In my previous life, I never revealed that I knew of their clandestine meetings. This time, however, I was armed with photos, receipts, and witness statements from the hotel staff. Victoria stammered. I don't know what you mean. Of course, it was a business lunch," I continued, my smile unwavering as I turned to address our intrigued colleagues. "Just like the business lunch where you discussed funneling company funds to offshore accounts, or perhaps the one where you planned to use my grandmother's hospital board position to rubber stamp overpriced supply contracts." James's grip tightened painfully on my arm. "Sarah, you're causing a scene. Let's discuss this privately." "Why privately, darling?" I kept my voice sweet. "I have nothing to hide. Unlike the shell companies you and Victoria created with my family's money." The office fell eerily silent, all eyes on us, including several board members who had arrived early for the afternoon meeting. James's grip tightened, but the pain was trivial compared to the agony of dying alone on his study floor. "You've lost your mind," he hissed, trying to drag me toward his office. "Actually, she has quite a lot of proof, Mr. Walker," Megan interjected, walking in with 2 federal agents, including evidence that you and Miss Brooks have been embezzling funds for the past 3 years. Victoria's face crumpled. Turning to James in panic, "You said nobody could trace those accounts. You promised me." "Shut up," James snapped. But it was too late. The board members were already murmuring, phones out, recording the unfolding drama. I gently removed James's hand from my arm. "You know, the funny thing is, in all your careful planning, you never once worried about me figuring it out. Your simple, trusting wife. Too naive to check the company finances, too in love to question your late nights. Everything I did was for us, for our future." James tried, reverting to the devoted husband act that had once fooled me. I laughed, and the sound made him flinch. "No, everything you did was for yourself. The money you stole from my grandmother's hospital fund was meant to build a new children's wing. The company shares you transferred to Victoria, those were from employees' pension funds." The federal agent stepped forward, but I held up my hand. "One moment, please, James. Would you like to explain why you had my grandmother's medical records altered? Or should I tell them about the drugs you've been slipping into her tea?" A collective gasp filled the office. James's face contorted with rage, the polished businessman replaced by the monster I remembered from my final moments. "You think you've won," he snarled. "You're nothing without me. I made you." I stepped closer, my voice low enough that only he could hear. "No, James, you killed me. Or at least you would have. But fate gave me a second chance, and I made myself." Before he could respond, the agents moved in, leading James and Victoria away in handcuffs. My grandmother appeared in the doorway, looking stronger than she had in months since I'd helped her stop drinking the tea James prepared. "Well done, my dear," she said, hugging me tight, "though I suspect there's quite a story you need to tell me later, Gran," I replied, tears stinging my eyes. "Right now, we have a hospital wing to build and some pension funds to restore." As we walked out together, the whispers behind us were not of scandal or shame, as in my past life, but of admiration and justice served. James had taught me one valuable lesson after all: revenge is best served not with anger, but with meticulous planning and a perfect smile. A month after James's arrest, I sat in my grandmother's garden, watching the sunset. The media frenzy over the expose of a corporate fraud ring was old news, replaced by fresher scandals. But the quiet brought its own challenges. Miss Walker, A familiar voice called from the garden path. Or is it Miss Carter again now? I turned to see Michael Chin, Richard from I's younger brother and the hospital's new head of security. In my past life, I had barely noticed him. Now, his genuine smile caught my attention. Sarah is fine, I replied, gesturing to the empty chair beside me. Though I am going back to Carter, the divorce papers were finalized yesterday. Michael sat down, placing a folder between us. The new security system proposals you requested. Though I suspect that's not why you're sitting alone in the garden at sunset. I smiled, appreciating his directness, just thinking about choices. In my marriage, I chose to see what I wanted to see, never again. Is that why you keep turning down dinner invitations? He asked. His question caught me off guard. 3 different board members, that new CEO from the tech company, even that actor from the hospital charity event. The gossip mill says you're either traumatized or secretly dating someone already. I laughed, surprised by how good it felt. Well, let's just say I'm being cautious this time around. Mill has found herself in need of a new hobby, as I've learned to tread cautiously. Trust, once freely given, now feels like a precious commodity, hard to earn. The candid shock in Michael's response the other day underlined this for me. Trust must be earned, not given freely. It reminded me of how he insisted I verify each thread of James's conspiracy before taking any action. No blind faith, only solid facts and deliberate actions guided our steps. The way Michael looked at me then was a stark contrast to James's calculating gazes. There was no hidden agenda, just genuine appreciation. This refreshing moment, however, was abruptly cut short by a commotion from the house, unsurprisingly. It was James's mother making an unexpected entrance. Another attempt, no doubt, to mend the unfixable. In my previous life, I had endured her manipulative antics, but not this time. Mrs. Walker, I greeted her with composed calmness as she stormed into the garden. James made his choices, and the evidence speaks for itself. Evidence can be faked, she shrieked, her desperation palpable. Victoria has confessed to everything. She's ready to take full blame. James could come home if you would just drop the charges. Beside me, I felt Michael tense, ready to step in, but I gently calmed him with a touch, like how James was willing to let Victoria take the fall for the missing hospital funds, or how he blamed her for the forged documents. It's an interesting pattern, isn't it? I pointed out, my tone even, her face contorted with denial. He loves you, everything he did for your future together. No, I stood firm, finally voicing the truth I'd held back in both lives. Everything he did was for himself. He was raised to believe he deserved whatever he wanted, no matter who it hurt, but he forgot something. I deserve better, you ungrateful. She lunged forward, but Michael was quick to step between us. I think it's time for you to leave, Mrs. Walker, he said firmly, before I'm forced to report another harassment incident. After security escorted her out, Michael turned to me, his concern evident. You okay? He asked, surprising myself. I nodded genuinely. Actually, yes, in my marriage, I was always trying to please everyone else. It feels good to finally stand up for myself. Speaking of standing up for yourself, he smiled, shifting the mood. There's a new restaurant opening next week. Great security, public location, separate checks. No pressure, just dinner and conversation. I studied him, intrigued. Are you asking me out, Mr. Chin? I'm suggesting we get to know each other better, Miss Carter. As someone who's watched you rebuild your life these past months, I'd like to know more about the woman behind the strength. In my past life, I had never known that Michael volunteered at the Children's Hospital or that he had exposed a corporate fraud case 2 years before James's scandal. Blinded by my husband's false perfection, I had missed seeing genuine goodness. One condition, I said firmly, no fake smiles, no hidden agendas. Just honest conversation. I wouldn't dare offer anything less, he replied with a grin. You've beaten better liars than me. For the first time in either of my lives, I felt truly seen, not as a wife, an ally, or a victim, but as myself. My phone buzzed with another message from Victoria's lawyers, begging for a meeting. She was still trying to negotiate her way out of charges, likely spinning more lies about James's innocence. I declined without hesitation. That's what I admire most, Michael said, noting my quick dismissal. You don't get lost in the past, you learn from it and move forward. He only knew how literal that was, but as we sat there, planning our dinner with the same detailed care we'd use for a security protocol, I realized something. My rebirth hadn't just been about revenge, it had been about learning to live again, to trust wisely, instead of blindly. The garden's roses were blooming, their scent carrying memories of both lives. But for the first time, I was more interested in the future than the past. After all, I had once died for love. Maybe now it was time to live for it. Please leave now, as security will escort you out. As she was led away, my grandmother joined us, radiating health and vitality. Well handled, my dear, she praised, her eyes twinkling with a hint of mystery. Though I suspect there's more to your strength than you've disclosed, I embraced her tightly. Grateful for this renewed opportunity to have her in my life. Let's just say I learned from the best, I replied. The opening ceremony commenced, and I positioned myself at the podium. Scanning the crowd, I recognized faces from both chapters of my life. Megan from the district attorney's office, Richard from the hospital staff who had helped uncover James's wrongdoings. Yet, there were also new faces, people who recognized me not as a victim or a betrayed spouse, but as a leader in my own right. Today isn't just about inaugurating a new hospital wing, I began. It's about fostering healing, not only of bodies but also of trust. It's about transforming shattered dreams into foundations for something stronger. As I spoke, I noticed a familiar figure in the back. James's son from his first marriage, the one who had initially sided with Victoria against me. This time around, when his father's true nature was revealed, I had reached out to him. Now, he was actively involved in the hospital's youth program, channeling his own troubled past into a force for good. After the ceremony, Michael and I strolled through the newly opened children's ward. The walls were adorned with vibrant murals, and each room was outfitted with state-of-the-art medical technology. In my previous life, James had dismissed my hospital work as mere hobbyism. Now, it stood as my enduring legacy. Sarah, Michael murmured as we paused by a window overlooking the garden. Remember our first discussion here about how trust must be earned? I nodded, noting his hands fidget slightly. A stark contrast to James's unwavering self-confidence. I've spent this year earning your trust, he continued, learning about your strength, your compassion, and even how you like your morning coffee. I'm not proposing marriage or a forever, just dinner next Friday at that quaint Italian restaurant you adore. Perhaps we could talk about what it means to build something new, at your own pace. Tears welled up in my eyes. In my previous life, James had proposed with a lavish spectacle that left me no room to refuse. Michael, however, offered choices, respect, and genuine emotion. I'd like that very much, I responded softly. That evening, I visited my grandmother's garden one last time before I moved into my new apartment. The roses were in full bloom, just as they had been on the day I started anew. My phone buzzed, a message from the prison warden confirming James's medical arrangements. I replied swiftly, then turned off my phone. His narrative was no longer mine to carry. As the sun set, I contemplated my dual lives. In one, I had perished believing that love demanded sacrifice. In this one, I understood it meant growth. The past no longer haunted me. Each day was a choice, and I chose to live fully, love wisely, and trust judiciously. The garden gate creaked open, and Michael appeared, his arms laden with takeout bags. Thought you might like some company. No pressure, just food and good conversation. I smiled, making space for him on the bench. Yes, this life was infinitely better. Not because of revenge or justice, but because I had finally learned to author my own story. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, so feel free to share your opinions, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great stories. We'll see you in the next video.